There are many bands under the name Sacrilege, an American thrash band, a Swedish death metal band, or a new wave of British heavy metal band who recently put out several new albums. Today I'm not talking about any of them, but Sacrilege from Birmingham. These Sacrilege were formed in 1984 by guitarist Damien Thompson, singer Linda Tam Simpson, bass player Tony May, and Liam Pickering on drums. From a common punk background in the Verucas, whose drummer Andy Baker would also join them in 1985, Tony and Damien wanted to move into the thrash metal direction with their new band and recorded 2 demo tapes before it was time for the debut album. The demos have been reissued several times on this compilation CD, for example. Reviewers are oftentimes discussing, is this still crust punk or is it thrash metal? I think the answer is it's rather some kind of pre-death metal. About 3 years before death metal seriously started rolling, you already find a lot of trademarks here in the relentlessly attacking music as well as in the morbid lyrics. Here's an example, the closing irony. Of course, it's a bit groovier, and the simple shouting of Tam is no death metal growling, but Behind the Realms of Madness prepared the way for something more brutal, a groundbreaking album. Within the Prophecy shows that Sacrilege had fully arrived in the metal world. With aggressive intensity and massive guitar riffs, Slayer couldn't do better. Damien's original guitar work is a strength of Sacrilege. Another strength is structure. Sacrilege always loved long instrumental passages with breaks, changing speed rather unexpectedly. If they didn't have a big breakthrough after this album, it was partly caused by a lack of live gigs. They were satisfied to do just a handful of shows each year. 1988, it was actually only one, supporting Candlemas. The lyrics were becoming more subtle than on the first album. Here's one example, the menacing story of the captive. In the Metal Hammer soundcheck for new releases of the month, Within the Prophecy was third from the bottom. The reviewer complained about weak vocals, poor production and songs being too long. Nevertheless, they did an interview with the band in the next issue. Sacrilege openly agreed that the production caused problems, especially with the vocals, trying different mics for each song, changes of volume and so on. And they announced the next album would be totally different. Indeed it was. Turn Back Trilobite was a slow, introspective doom album without thrash elements. This sudden change in style was nearly as shocking to the fans as Celtic Frost's Cold Lake had been. Damien described this change in an interview with Metal Forces magazine. It's better structured than Prophecy, and in my opinion it's far better. We said we would slow things down, write songs with a more complex and heavier style than before, and this is what we've done. Tam also mentioned that her lyrics were inspired by yoga, as you could guess from a title like Awaken, Zoyana Maskal. Well, Turn Back Trilobite is certainly an unusual, interesting, creative album. I don't play it as often as the others, but it certainly is worth checking out. Damien pointed out it was not an experimental album, but rather another step in the progression. We won't find out where this progression would have led to because the band split up after this album in 1990. 25 years later, in 2015, the same lineup who had recorded the Trilobite album reunited and signed a deal with Relapse Records. The Behind the Realms of Madness album was re-released on vinyl with a new cover artwork and many bonus tracks, demos, old live tracks, and actually 2 newly recorded songs. Dig Your Own Grave is the remake of a 1984 demo song. Feet is a new tune. From the aggression and energy you can tell that they really meant it, but since this was 6 years ago and no new album has followed, it seems that we won't hear much more from Sacrilege. It's a shame, but I'll see you next time.